Have you ever noticed how some people can go through heartbreak, loss, rejection, and barely shed a tear, while someone else tears up because of a song, a stranger's kindness, or a single sentence they can't stop thinking about? It seems irrational, almost like their emotions are out of control. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What if people who cry easily aren't feeling more emotion, but processing emotion in a completely different way? Because psychology has discovered something fascinating. Tears aren't always a sign that someone is falling apart. Sometimes they're evidence that the brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And once you understand why some people cry so easily, you'll never look at tears the same way again. Most people think tears begin in the eyes. They don't. They begin in the brain. Long before the first tear appears, your brain has already analyzed a memory, attached meaning to it, compared it with past experiences, and decided that what you're feeling is too important to stay trapped inside. That's why two people can witness the exact same moment, yet only one of them cries. The difference isn't emotional strength, it's something much deeper. And to understand it, we first need to understand how the brain decides what deserves a tear and what doesn't. Here's something most people never realize. Crying doesn't begin with emotion, it begins with meaning. Imagine two people watching the exact same movie scene. One smiles, enjoys the moment, and moves on. The other suddenly feels their throat tighten, their breathing changes, their eyes begin to fill with tears. The movie didn't change, their brain did. Because while most people are simply watching the scene, another brain is doing something entirely different. It's connecting that moment to forgotten memories, to old conversations, to childhood experiences, to people they've lost, and to fears they never spoke about. In just a few seconds, the brain isn't processing one emotion, it's processing dozens. Psychology refers to this as depth of emotional processing. Some brains naturally process experiences at a much deeper level than others. They don't just notice what's happening, they instinctively search for what it means. And that's an important difference. Most people experience an event. Others experience the layers beneath the event. That's why a simple goodbye can remind someone of every goodbye they've ever had. Why a random piece of music can unlock memories they haven't thought about in years. Why watching a stranger cry can feel strangely personal. Their brain isn't reacting to the moment alone. It's reacting to everything the moment represents. And eventually, all of that emotional information reaches a point where words are no longer enough. That's when the body speaks instead, through tears. But if tears are the result of deeper emotional processing, a question appears. Why do some people process emotions so deeply in the first place? Is it something they learned? Is it childhood, personality? Or is the answer hidden much deeper, inside the way their brain is wired? But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. If deeper emotional processing explains why some people cry more easily, it still doesn't explain something else. Why do those same people often keep thinking about the experience, long after everyone else has moved on? Think about the last time someone said something that hurt you. Maybe everyone else forgot about it the next day, but somehow, your mind kept returning to it. You replayed the conversation. You wondered what they really meant. You imagined what you should have said instead. Days later, maybe even years later, you could still remember exactly how it felt. Most people call this overthinking, but psychology sees something more complicated. Your brain isn't simply replaying the moment, it's trying to complete it. Human beings have an incredible need to make sense of emotional experiences, but not everyone's brain is equally satisfied with simple answers. Some minds keep searching, looking for meaning, looking for patterns, looking for closure. Imagine reading a novel only to discover that the final chapter has been ripped out. You wouldn't stop thinking about it. Your mind would naturally keep trying to imagine how the story ends. Emotional experiences work in much the same way. When something feels unfinished, emotionally confusing, or deeply significant, your brain keeps returning to it. Not because it's broken, but because it refuses to leave meaning unfinished. Every time that memory returns, the emotion returns with it. That's why tears sometimes appear hours, days, or even years after the event itself. But this raises an even bigger question. If some brains process emotion this deeply, why would evolution allow such a painful trait to exist? Wouldn't life be easier if we simply felt less? Surprisingly, psychology suggests the opposite. Evolution has a simple rule. Traits that consistently make us weaker tend to disappear over time. Yet millions of people still experience emotion this intensely. That tells us something important. This wasn't simply a weakness nature forgot to remove. It served a purpose. Long before modern cities, humans survived by paying attention to one another. A slight change in someone's expression, a hesitation in their voice, fear they were trying to hide, could mean the difference between safety and danger. While some people were scanning the horizon for predators, others were scanning people, detecting tension, conflict, sadness, trust, long before anyone else noticed. Today, that same system still exists, but the world around it has changed. Instead of reading a small tribe, your brain is trying to read hundreds of people, endless conversations, heartbreaking news and social media, family problems and strangers you'll never even meet. The radar never turns off. And eventually, the emotional weight becomes too heavy to carry silently. That's when tears appear. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system has reached its natural limit. Think of your mind like a sponge. Most people absorb a little, squeeze it out, and move on. But some minds keep absorbing conversation after conversation, memory after memory, until there's simply no room left. Crying isn't the sponge breaking, it's the sponge, releasing what it can no longer hold. And maybe that's why emotionally sensitive people often notice acts of kindness no one else remembers, sense when someone is pretending to be okay, or feel moved by moments everyone else walks past. They're not experiencing a different world. They're experiencing more of the same world. But here's where most people make a dangerous mistake. They spend their entire lives trying to stop themselves from crying, trying to become less sensitive, less emotional, less affected. But what if that's exactly the wrong goal? What if the real question isn't, how do I stop crying, but how do I protect a mind that feels this deeply without losing what makes it special? Maybe the goal was never to stop crying. Maybe that's the wrong question we've been asking all along. Every time someone told you you're too emotional, or you need thicker skin, or stop taking everything so personally, they were assuming your emotions were the problem. But what if the real problem was trying to force a deeply feeling mind to live as if it barely felt anything at all? So if you've spent your life trying to become someone who never cries, maybe it's time to ask a different question. Not, how do I stop feeling so much? But, how do I build a life where feeling deeply becomes a strength instead of a burden? Because the people who cry easily aren't always the weakest people in the room. Sometimes, they're the last people who still allow themselves to be fully human in a world that's slowly teaching everyone else not to be. And maybe your tears were never proof that you're falling apart. Maybe they've been proof all along that a part of you refused to become emotionally numb. And in a world where so many people have forgotten how to feel, that may be one of the rarest strengths a person can possess. If this changed the way you see your own emotions, then there's another behavior that psychology often misunderstands. Some people don't express their emotions through tears. They disappear instead. They stop replying, withdraw from people, and slowly distance themselves from the world around them. If you've ever wondered why some people quietly isolate themselves without saying a word, watch the next video. It might explain someone you've been trying to understand, or even yourself.